Hello, I'm Katharina Rout, and I'm here to talk about becoming citizens of the world. The world has never been as interconnected as now. Today, more than 1 billion people are on the move, more than ever before, and this number may double within the next 40 years due to climate change, according to Thomas Nail, author of The Century of the Migrant. He predicts that the 21st century will be the century of the migrant. Disturbingly, the number of people forced from their homes is also higher than ever before, 65.5 million. No protection exists for the human rights of people who are internally displaced, of refugees without legal status in a nation state, and especially of stateless refugees. Because we share the limited space of this globe, every one of these migrants, as Immanuel Kant argued in 1795, has a right to become a fellow citizen or fellow inhabitant for at least a certain amount of time. To create a state of world peace, Kant argued, we need laws establishing world citizenship and conditions of universal hospitality. World citizenship requires a cosmopolitan awareness, not just a globalized economy. This needs to inform our treatment of refugees. With nearly 1 million immigrants scheduled to arrive in Canada in the next 3 years, we cannot leave it to politicians and experts to show this hospitality. Insufficient integration of newcomers potentially creates alienation among the immigrants and fear in the already established populations. The backlash we experience and witness in the United States and much of Europe threatens their democracies. But we can take charge. We can develop the leadership skills and attitudes that can further integration. By welcoming newcomers fleeing war and persecution, we can all contribute in a small but significant way to world peace. Small actions of non-experts can have far-reaching consequences. Here's my story as an example. After 9/11, I started to read Arabic fiction in translation to learn more about the Middle East. A few years later, I had a chance to teach a course on modern Arabic fiction in translation with the support of a colleague from Jordan. The class included students from Arab countries who provided cultural information for their Canadian peers, and in turn encountered some readings that were banned in their home countries. The second time I taught the course, many community members joined the class. We shared knowledge, was how a Saudi student described the course. It was an experiment. I was no expert. Everyone took risks. There were tense moments. But we learned about each other, and we left behind any notion of a uniform Arab world or a uniform West. Literature made us aware of the stories of individuals, of the heterogeneity of their cultures, of the value of difference, and of the commonalities we share. In order to share knowledge, it is vital to involve people with the expertise of lived experience. We all learned much when a newcomer to Nanaimo talked about his experience as a Syrian refugee. We had invited him as a guest speaker when we read Hassan Kalafani's novella Men in the Sun about the plight of Palestinian refugees. Newcomers bring their stories with them. If we learn to listen, both sides benefit. Unexpected consequences followed my foray into reading Arabic fiction and translation. An opportunity to introduce our local experiment at a national conference on international education, an invitation to talk about Middle Eastern literature to a sponsorship group preparing for their family, a request from a publisher to suggest material for an anthology used in university courses. As the Arab Spring gave way to violence and the numbers of refugees grew, I developed a course on refugee writing. Again, there were no models to work with, no standard curriculum, little research. Several of the students were community members, sponsoring refugees or developing such a commitment. This course too had unforeseen effects. A PhD candidate in Belgium asked for my reading list to use in his dissertation. An Eritrean writer, Abu Bakr Khal, emailed us from his new home in Denmark to tell us how much it meant to him to be read in a Canadian university. Pebbles thrown into the water can have short-term and long-term effects, and we can all throw pebbles. As a literary translator, I'm aware that since World War II, English has been the most translated language worldwide, but is not much translated into. This imbalance supports the international expansion of Anglo-American culture and reinforces the drift toward American hegemony. Crucially, we can and need to learn more about other cultures and people. We can be leaders in supporting newcomers. Here's how. Watch a movie or read a book in translation about a country that you know little about. Take such books to your book club. If you're a teacher, add international material to your curriculum. Open your classroom to newcomers to Canada to share their stories and expertise. If you're a university student, join your local World University Service of Canada WUSC group. WUSC brings bright students from refugee camps to Canadian universities and has a great track record of success. Form or join a private sponsorship group, or even just support such a group and their newcomers and offer English conversation or childcare, or simply talk to a newcomer and listen to his or her story. As Justin Trudeau said at the airport when he welcomed Syrian refugee families, we can do this together. Every one of us can become a leader in our communities. We must stop thinking about the refugee crisis as a crisis they have created and we have to cope with, and instead understand that this is a crisis in humanity, as the late sociologist Zygmunt Bauman called it. There is no exit, he said, from that crisis other than the solidarity of humans. By learning about each other and showing hospitality, we strengthen our communities, prepare for a more viable social and economic future for ourselves and our neighbors. We contribute to world peace. That is leadership. Thank you.